So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the launch event for Translation Manchester funding schemes for 2021. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Alessandro, and I'm Translational Research Manager at the university, and I manage Translation Manchester. So this session today is about letting you know a little bit more about the Translational Partnership Award, which is the award that from the Wellcome Trust that funds us. And also give you an overview of our funding schemes that are now open for application. I will try to give some advice on eligibility and also give you some tips on what the panel normally looks like when deciding for successful awardees. I will try to limit my presentation to 10-15 minutes, and then at the end of which we'll have a good 40-45 minutes per question and answer. So you can ask me specific question about your project or things that I might not covered in my presentation. If you have any question in the meantime, you can already start populating the chat with those questions, and we will pick them up at the end. If we not have time to cover all the question, you can still follow it up in an email. So just leave your contact details. So unless you're logged in with the University of Manchester account, so we'll be able to find you. Please keep your microphone on mute and perhaps the camera off so that we don't disturb the presentation. And just as a reminder, this event is being recorded and will be made available on our website. So if you've not done it already, please go on our website, have a look, because there is a lot of new content which has been put in the last couple of weeks. You can subscribe to our newsletter if you're not already subscribed. And we also have a YouTube channel where all our events are posted. So I think Jim will be posting some links throughout the presentation in which you can subscribe and get all the information you need. So without further ado, let's get started with the presentation. The Translational Partnership Award is what funds these funding schemes and our activities as Translation Manchester more general. This was awarded to the university back in 2018, and it was an award of 1.2 million to start with. And it's all about facilitating translation, going from helping project going from discovery to innovation, bringing together all the infrastructure, which is already available at the university and beyond in Greater Manchester, all supporting translational research. Last year, we applied for further funding from the Wellcome Trust, and we were successful in securing 2.4 million, which will shape our activities in the next 3 years, starting from November. And what's good about this particular award is the flexibility to react to local bottlenecks. So we aim to see what our researchers need, and as a result of that, we are trying to provide that gap in translation. Our main aims of both the TPA and Translation Manchester, which is the way we deliver the TPA, is supporting translational research by direct and indirect support. Today we're talking about direct financial support to project. But also we aim to connect researchers across discipline. We aim to promote innovation with industry, leading to commercialization of research. And we want to change the culture, bringing innovation and translation at the core of many research projects across our institution. We have devised this pathway, which when applying for our funding is very important to get familiar with. We normally have one-to-one interactions with academic in which we try to identify where their research projects sit in this particular translational pathway. I think a link of that will be posted in the chat as we speak. And we ask them what they are, where they're going, and what's stopping them. What is the bottleneck that is stopping them to go from one stage to the other? And one of our main metrics is how many projects we're able to shift in that particular pathway. So having said that, those bottlenecks that I just mentioned, we asked our academics what these bottlenecks are. And as you can see from this graph to the left, the majority of people have identified funding as it's one of the biggest bottlenecks for translation, which is not a surprise. And that's why the majority of our funding is directed towards pump priming support for research projects. Also other type of bottlenecks that have been identified by the Manchester community is the access to bioinformatics and biostatistics support, access to clinical samples, access to technical expertise, as well as coordinator for clinical trials. So as a result of those bottlenecks, we devised a plan for the next 3 years, which is divided in these 6 main areas. And today we're going to talk about translational funding in particular. So since the 2018, when the award started, we have supported directly and financially 32 projects for a total investment of 0.8 million. And this investment has contributed to several commercialization activities. This data is up to date since I think last summer is the last time we updated it actually. So it might not be fully up to date, but we had 9 IP disclosures, 7 patents, 3 spin-out companies, some seed investment and major margin deal stemming out from our investment fund. Also, our projects went on to secure follow-on funding from external and internal funding source, and this has been for over £2 million. And in the next 3 years, we're planning to invest 1.2 million in pump priming activities. The schemes I'm going to tell you about today, and then there will be some more being announced later this year. So the main funding schemes that opened for application last Monday are 2. One is called Access to Expertise, and the other one is called Project for Translation. You might have heard about these schemes before because they've been running for 3 years, but just to summarize what the schemes are trying to achieve, I will just present a couple of slides. So the Access to Expertise is basically what it says in the tin, is about giving academics an opportunity to engage with external experts. And so when I say external, this is external to your immediate research group. It doesn't need to be external to the university, so it could be another department. We do really encourage multidisciplinary collaborations, but it can be an external company, a consultancy firm. And the idea is that you do not have the expertise in your group to overcome that bottleneck. So in the past, we have funded bioinformatics and biostatistics support. We funded research nurse or clinician time for the collection of clinical samples. Some academics have partnered with external companies to develop software or an app for mobile devices. We have funded regulatory advice from different sources, health economics advice, cost of goods, TPP development, and researcher coordinator time. But again, this list is not exhaustive because we aim to, again, react to the bottleneck that are there. So as soon as there is a clear bottleneck that is stopping your project to progress in that translational pathway I showed you before, we're happy to fund it. So it's not intended to fund an entire project. So that specific bottleneck idea is very important. And with this scheme, we provide up to £25,000 for project that can last from 6 to 9 months. We do accept application for longer project up to 12, but we would advise you to get in touch with us to check eligibility before applying for a longer project. So the HUE normally will cover the consultancy costs for the external expert, and it is not normally consumable focused, although we do know that some consultancy will require also some consumables to do some experiments in the lab. So if that's the case, perhaps get in touch with us and we can clarify eligibility and if it's suitable for this scheme. The next funding scheme that we offer is Project for Translation, or P4T. So again, this is about overcoming a specific hurdle of bottleneck that's preventing the project to progress in the translational pathway. And this is a more traditional research project. It could be a collaboration between 2 groups, cross-disciplinary. It could be collaboration with industry, but doesn't necessarily have to. And in the past, we funded something like proof of concept study, patient-centered research, collaboration with industry, method development, and prototype manufacturing. It is important that this is part of a wider program that is already happening in your lab and for which you have encountered a bottleneck you want to solve. Again, the project 6 to 9 months or up to 12 if you get in touch with us, and the maximum amount of money that can be awarded is £55,000. And as this is a more traditional research project, you would expect it to cover things like a salary for a PDRA or consumables for your research project. We have a budget of 220K each year for this in the next 3 years. So hopefully we can fund 4 or more projects each year. So in terms of what we funded in the past, as you can see from these diagrams, those are the majority of our projects funded by P4T and HUE since 2018. And as you can see, they can spread across the full translational pathway. So we believe that there is no project that is too early for translation. So if even if you have a project which is very early on, D1 or D2, but has translational potential, and you do have that translational vision, you're welcome to apply. And if you're not sure about what the translational vision might be looking like, just get in touch with us and we can do one-to-one meeting to advise. And we did fund the same project with 2 different awards in the past. Those are in the colored dots here. So we're happy to see the project progressing and fund it again to go even further in the translational pathway, which is the main of our metrics, how many projects we are able to shift and get into the implementation, into the NHS, perhaps on commercialization. So we're also keen for the applicants to make use of the Translation Manchester Research Network. This network was established in 2018 when the Translation Manchester was established, and it basically collates all the university and trusts infrastructure in terms of research facility, all the networks, the biobanks, clinical trial supports, even some industry partners, all aimed at supporting translational research. All these partners are in a handy booklet. The link is here, but I think Jim will also very efficiently post this in the chat. And the idea is that if there is a type of support that you're looking for, they're organized in different areas, but they also show what type of level of translation you're expected to be before contacting them. So if you want to collaborate with them, get their service, have a look at the booklet, see if any of them has the expertise you require, and that might as well be the start of a HUE application and funding. So we get the people in the Translation Manchester Research Network to present every month to a seminar series. This month we paused to deliver this event, but all the events are available on our YouTube channel, and perhaps I picked a few that I think could be relevant to an HUE application. If you want to speak, for example, with a catapult, both the cell and gene therapy catapult or the medicine discovery catapult for regulatory advice or stuff like that, you can look at the video in our YouTube channel, see the type of support they can provide, and then making contact with them in order to access that support with an Access to Expertise Award. Very similarly, we have hosted Professor Andy Vale from the Biostatistics Collaboration Unit, and also is also leading on the NIHR Research Design Service. And that's probably the best way to access biostatistics and bioinformatics support if you do not have it in your research group. Andy is more than happy to discuss your needs for that and provide that costing for you to access the support and then apply for HUE. And if your bottleneck sits in patient and public involvement, we hosted a few weeks ago now, Bella Starling from Vocal, and the talk is also available on YouTube, and she can also provide advice on how to improve your PPI or public engagement activities. A couple more opportunities perhaps to look for HUE experts. We run a series of events with the Pankhurst Institute around regulatory advice on digital health technology and medical technology, and also value proposition and health economics. Some of the events already happened. The videos are on the Pankhurst website. I think perhaps Jim can post the link to both see the video of the past events and to register to the events that are coming up in July and September, although the September one is not going to be of much use for the HUE this year, it's still of relevance for next year. So those are external and internal experts coming to provide an overview of the support they can provide in this area. So in terms of the timelines for the call was open last week. Today we're holding this informative workshop. And then there is a deadline later on this month, which is actually not a deadline for us. It's a deadline for you to contact the research support manager in your area and letting them know that you're going to be submitting an application for these schemes by the deadline of the 26th of August. It's very important to let them know, because it's a busy time of the year. A lot of people are on annual leave, so we don't want them to be the workload to be high because they need to cost many applications in the last week leading to the application. So if you could let them know of your plan to submit an application, that would be good. That's probably more important for P40 rather than HUE, because they might have to cost some PDRA costs and and things like that. So please do get in touch with your RSM if you're planning to submit an application in August. The actual deadline is the 26th of August, just before the bank holiday weekend. And we then start the peer review process with a view of awarding the successful project in the week commencing the 25th of October. And all the projects are expected to start in November or shortly afterwards, which is when our renewal award will start. So I just thought that then now I will spend a few minutes to give you a few tips on how what successful application looked like in the past. So normally we will be expecting to see a clear and specific bottleneck. I know I've said this several times, but it's very important. And that bottleneck needs to be feasibly addressed with the funding. We want to see a demonstrable shift in the translational pathway. It doesn't need to be going from D1 to T4. We're not expecting a small amount of money to do that, but even like a plan to go to the next stage, and then a vision to go towards the end is something that we do expect. And that is summarized in the clear translational vision. So we want to see both a short-term and a long-term vision. So, and also a plan to implement that vision. So what are you going to do after you get this pan-priming funding? What external funding scheme you're going to target, and what the project will look like in terms of translation. The application, the successful application usually had very clear and specific objective that had associated milestones that could be easily monitored. We do want to see a clear plan for follow-on funding, which is one of the metrics of the TPA, and clarity on the IP situation. So this is very important in translation. We want to know that your project has freedom to operate, and also that any new IP that might arise from the project is going to be dealt properly. So we ask you to engage with the Innovation Factory to make sure that there is a plan for that. The money from Wellcome, normally there is a condition to accept. The Wellcome Trust take revenue sharing of any IP that is commercialized as a result of Wellcome funding. So that means that, I know this is a small amount of money, but that means that the Innovation Factory in due time will calculate how much of that will go back to Wellcome when and if your innovation is commercialized. It's very important for the application in that the staff has been identified. So those are short projects, so we wouldn't be expecting you to go out and recruit for the expert or the PDRA, although it's possible and it needs to be planned into the timeline of the project. We would do, in the past, successful projects were the one ready to go. And also because of the same reason, we would like for all licenses, home office license or ethical approvals to be in place, or with a clear plan and feasible plan to get those approvals before the project starts. So I think I'm done with my presentation, and I do have a few question and answer that I can go through. But in the meantime, if you do have any question that is not covered from these 2 slides, please put them in the chat, and we can have one-to-one interaction today. I've got time until 2 o'clock, and I'm happy to stay on the call and answer 20 questions that I might not clarified in my presentation and answering the question. But since there is no question that I can see so far in the chat, I will go ahead and answer those frequently asked questions that are a combination of what we were asked in the past, and also the questions that you have submitted when you registered to the Eventbrite event. So we often get asked if you can apply to HUE and P4T if you have received funding from the TPA in the past. And the answer to that question is yes. As I said before, we funded projects from the same PI for more than 1 year. What is important though is that if you, I don't know how many, I've not seen the people of the list of people in the call, but if you have been a 2020 awardee, you're not allowed to apply again unless your project is finished and reported for. And that's because we want to see that that project has finished before you apply for the next pot of funding. We often get asked if you can apply for both HUE and P4T, and the answer to that is, again, yes, you can. The projects though need to be, they can be complementary, but they need to be in a way independent. So we wouldn't fund an HUE project that requires the P4T to be successful. They need to be standing on their own. So that's very important. And you cannot apply for two of the same. So you cannot apply for two HUE or two P4T SPI. However, you can be collaborator on one and PI on another. So that is possible. We also get asked if you can apply as a postdoc, and the answer is yes. What we need to ensure is that there is a COI, that is a more senior academic, that can be around for the prosecution of the project to be able to monitor it. But you can be the PI as a postdoc in the both of the schemes. This question number 4 has been answered before. We fund all stages of translation. We often get asked if we need to have funding, external funding, in order to access HUE and P4T. The answer to this is no. Your project doesn't need to be funded already. However, we would expect that the program of work is already ongoing in your lab, because that's how you encounter that specific bottleneck. Don't know if that's clear at all. And then we're asking, we're asked what costs can be covered by the TPA awards, and I think I've covered that already in my slides before. But if you've got any specific question later, I can also answer that. And again, the access to expertise expert need to be named, also because you need to cost that into the application. So you need to know where the you need to know where the expertise is going to be sourced for. In the same way, you need to have your PDRA either named or plan to identify and recruit it in the timeline that are needed for the project. Do we like to discuss specific applications to ensure they fit in the remit of funding? Well, today is about that. And also, if you want to contact us separately, we can do that. But in general, we do ask, if you read the application briefs on the website, we do ask you to get in touch with us with a very brief expression of interest. There is a few details to fill in. And so this is more for us to plan the peer review process, but also to make sure that all the projects are applied to our schemes are eligible. So if from that expression of interest, we identify that your project is not eligible, we will get back to you. Otherwise, we'll just confirm eligibility and let you know, and invite you to full application. Another question we received was if the funding can pay for statistical support. Again, I answered that before, and there is actually the biostatistic collaboration unit that could be of use for funding the expert. And do I need to collaborate with industry? You can, but it's not compulsory. Again, this is a question that comes quite often in our mailbox. And the question about IP, again, I answered that. Freedom to operate is very important. Information on how the IP will be dealt with, if new IP should arise. And it's very important to have a chat with the Innovation Factory because of that. You do not need to be Wellcome funded. That's question number 13. And again, the eligible costs have been detailed before. So I think I'm done with all the questions that we normally get asked, but I've seen a hand raised and a couple of questions in the chat. So let's start with the raised hand. Lu Xin Wang, hello.
Hi, Alessandro. Yeah, I emailed you already. I just wanted to get some clarity about the idea that we are involving an SME. So I read your guidance on the IP, but that seems to be guidance related to us as academics of the university. So the issue for the SME is what happens to any IP in terms of sharing it with them?
Yeah, so the question in the application form is, where will the IP be? Will it stay in the university? Will it stay with the SMEs? And it doesn't matter where it goes, but we need clarity on that, because the panel will look into it. So in the past, we had collaboration with the industry in which from the application, it wasn't clear where the IP was gonna go. So obviously, I think the Wellcome will require revenue sharing on the IP, wherever it sits. So it's very important that it's clear. And if you're not sure about what that's gonna look like, we can direct you to someone in the Innovation Factory to have a chat with and perhaps inform the application form. Is that something you would be interested in?
Yeah, I mean, I guess because the typical sort of funding, right? If I got a Wellcome Trust grant, for example, right? Any IP I generate belongs to the university because I'm an employee of the university. So the question then is, would that be true for this money? Because I guess ultimately it comes from the university, right?
That's right. But if your collaboration with the SMEs implies that the IP sits with them, we need to know. Because normally we would be expecting for the IP to sit with you and with the university. So that clarity needs to be coming across in the application form.
Yeah. If I may follow up a second question with your access to expertise, can we use that to get patent searches to identify what the landscape, well, what the freedom to operate is? I mean, I know what's in the scientific literature, but of course that isn't necessarily what's in the patent literature, right?
I think if that's your bottleneck and you cannot progress in the translational pathway if you do not do that, and you can demonstrate that by doing that, you do that shift in the translational pathway, then I wouldn't think why not, to be honest. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
No problem. So have we got a question in the chat? Let me just bring that up. If you also want to ask, oh yeah, thank you, Jim.
Yeah, there's a couple there. Do you want me to read them out?
That would be great because I can't find the chat box.
Yeah, that's all right. So the first one's from Karen Lander. It says, how does this funding scheme sit with MRC CIC funding?
Good question. So this is very similar to the CIC. We had a plan to align those. So I didn't mention that in my presentation, but we, Translation Manchester, sit within the Research Strategy and Innovation team, which is also the team that historically used to manage CIC panels. So in the last call that we had last year, we tried to run them as closely as we could so that we would not fund the same project, obviously, but be aware of what was submitted to what. As you know, this year CIC is not running, and the plan for the next few years is for a joint CIC and IAA accounts that is going to be probably handled centrally. So to answer your question, is very similar to the CIC. Obviously, it's Wellcome funded rather than Research Council funded, and it's probably the only alternative to CIC this year. Does that answer your question? Is it, Karen?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
And then the next question is about the expression of interest form, whether it's available on the website, or can we just send an email with some of the project? I can send through the link to the website after this.
Yeah, thank you. So I think in the application brief, there is a summary of information that you will need to put in an expression of interest, but it is an email. So we want to know who you are, what your area is, what the bottleneck is, to be able to first recruit reviewers for evaluating your application should you submit it, and also to make sure that is in remit of the scheme. So it's not a form, it's just an email to send us. But I think, is this Omolade? I think you've been in touch, and that's probably your expression of interest already done.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Alessandro. Thanks.
No problem.
For everybody else, I have just put in the chat box where you can find the application briefs. So yeah, you can read through those. And then there's another question around IP again. So what is a forward IP? Sorry, what if the forward IP will be licensed to a university spin out? Will this be a problem?
No, this is not a problem because we have done that in the past. As I mentioned before, we had 3 spin-out companies. So as soon as you have a plan for that and the innovation factory is involved, it's okay, especially because it's spin out from the university. So there is a clear process for that. Okay. Is that Lydia?
Yes, it's me. Yes, thanks, Alessandro. Yeah, that, I mean, it was just following up on the other question, because I just want to be clear that that will not be a problem.
Yeah, I think you just need to mention that it will sit with the spin-out company, and you had a chat with the innovation factory, which I think you have.
Oh yeah, no, I've been working with them for the past several months, absolutely. yeah.
So,
Okay.
so there's no problem with that.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other question, Jim?
There's not in the chat box, no. So if anyone does have one, feel free to raise your hand. So Lucian has got his hand raised again.
Thanks very much. Just a follow-up question on the sort of industrial or SME involvement. Does having them involved improve our chances of success? And the follow-on question, would it improve our chances if I manage to get them to cough up some money?
So sorry, say this, the second one again.
Would having would having SME or industrial collaboration improve the chances of success? And if they are contributing financially, would that improve the chances of success?
So I guess it will depend on the panel. We do want to promote industrial collaboration and NHS collaboration. So I think at least 50% of our previous awardees did have either a industry collaboration or NHS collaboration. So I think the panel will see that as a how do you say, as a very good thing for translation, and especially if there is a commitment from the partner. So I would think it's not a rule, but it has been in the past that panel have seen those projects favorably.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there any other question in the chat?
There isn't. I can't see any other hands raised. But as you said, Alessandro, we could always leave this call running if people want to ask a question, you know, privately or what have you.
Good. If anyone has any question, can raise your hand or put it in the chat. Or I can see one in the chat actually. Do we require letter of support? Actually, we don't, but the application needs to be signed off by your head of division. So this is because, as you know, Wellcome only funds directly incurred costs. I should have mentioned this before, but we do need the costings of the directly allocated costs as well, which we do not fund. So because of that, we need the approval from your head of division, but no support letter is required. I suppose if your project needed a collaboration from an SME, like Lucian was mentioning before, and if the SME is committing some costs, perhaps a letter of support might be beneficial, but we don't require it.
And then there's another question just about expression of interest again, whether it's required, and if so, by when.
So we do not make it compulsory. I would really appreciate if you could let us know so that you can inform us in creating the peer review, the panel for the peer review. So it would be great if we know how many applications we're going to be receiving and in what area. And you know, it's more of an email to us explaining the bottleneck, the area, and where about in the university you sit, so that we can expect your application in due time, because we're expecting a few this year.
Ali, as well, I'm just going to pop in and say, because John has emailed us just about the links not working to application forms. We've noticed that that's happened with a couple of people. So if anyone is having any issues downloading the application forms, please email us, and then we'll make sure they get sent to you, and we'll try and work out what that issue is. But I think it's only affecting a couple of people. So
yeah, so the application forms are hosted on the document system on the university, because we noticed last year we had to do some amendments on the go. So we put always the latest version on the website, and we try not to send them via email, so that, you know, the last one can be always downloaded from the website. But we can send that link if it's not working for you for any reason. What we did notice is that it downloads automatically, so some people don't notice that it's actually being downloaded. But let us know if you got any issue with that, and we can provide the form or different link.
And then Ali, there's a question just following up from one of your previous answers. Rudy's asking whether there's any sort of, you can share any insight on how many applications we might expect to receive, or how many are proportion of how many are funded or have been funded in the past.
Yeah, so that is a very good question. I was meant to get that data for you for today, but I've not got down the top of my head. So we're gonna fund at least 4 P4T, depending on how much they come as, so 4 or more, and we are gonna fund 5 or more HUE. So in the past, I'm not sure, I can get back to you with the number, but I think we had about 10 to 20% of success with the P4T, and 30 to 40% with the HUE. So we don't know this year because with the CIC not being around, and that's why we're doing that expression of interest as well. But it is going to be very competitive. Is there any other question?
Oh, sorry, there is one that's just come in. Will the funding be classed as a P code or an R code?
So good question again. This is at the vault funding from the Wellcome Trust. So what we have an R code, and what's gonna happen is we'll generate a task within that R code for each of the projects that we award, and so that we can monitor expenditure. So we have quite strict deadlines for expenditure from the Wellcome. So we will keep that information and provide updates on expenditure every month to our awardees. And I think there's no question yet, but if you do have any, please put them in the chat. But what I didn't mention is what the reporting schedule is. So we do request an interim report halfway through the project, and then we ask for a final report, which is like a month after the project ends. So those are not very demanding reports to fill in. There are a couple of pages, and mostly we ask for outputs and what the plan for follow-on funding is. And then every now and then we will get back in touch with the successful awardees to ask for further outputs coming out of the original work, because that's the best way to monitor success, especially for translational projects that might not benefit straight away from the funding, but in the long run they will. So there is like tick boxes to check if you have published any paper, received any further funding, published any patents, so stuff like that. And also we will do that for the duration of the TPA award, because that's what the Wellcome requires from us. And you'll get the opportunity also to get some PR within the University and to Translational Manchester channel. So we're planning to do some blogs and some videos featuring our awardees in the next 3 years. Is there any other question in the chat, or if anyone wants to raise their hand and ask me directly, this is your chance. At the moment, Translation Manchester is myself and Jim, who I need to thank for putting together all these events all the time. And so my time is quite limited. I'm happy to meet with anyone that might have some interest in applying for our scheme, but today would be the best to ask me any question. And then another translational research manager will join us as soon as possible, replacing my colleague that has left a few months ago.
So I was going to say just that we've been recording this session, so we'll edit the video and then send it around to everybody so you can watch it back. But I suppose if people want to hang around to ask a question one-to-one or anything like that, then we've got 20 minutes now if you just make it known. Otherwise, I suppose we'll end the meeting for all. But if you've got no questions, then yeah, feel free to go about your day and enjoy your afternoons.
Good. No new questions are coming, so I think I'll thank everyone for attending. Thank James for organizing. All the forms are available online. If you got any issue, just let us know. Get in touch with any queries, and we're looking forward to receive your application. Thank you very much.